Good evening. There is a war on in Britain. Yesterday, we saw this.
The unanimous decision of this court is that the terms woman and sex in the Equality Act 2010 refer to a biological woman and biological sex.
A big battle was won. Women are women, men can't legally be women, not even if they put a frock on and call themselves Shirley. The war is now with Britain's hyper-woke, far-left, lunatic public services. They need to remove their old nonsense policies. So, British Transport Police have got off to a decent start by the sounds of things. They've said that trans women, so biological blokes, will no longer be able to strip search women. Good. Also, trans women will be strip searched by men. Good. There's an update on the toilets issue as well. So the chair of the Equality and Human Rights Commission, Baroness Faulkner, has said single-sex services like changing rooms and toilets must be based on biological sex. So that's a step in the right direction. And apparently it goes for sports too. So that's good. No more blokes in women's changing rooms or women's sports. Well, obviously all of that needs to actually happen though, doesn't it? But we need to go further. Schools need to stop pumping kids full of trans ideology and telling impressionable youngsters that they can be born into the wrong body. We have actually seen how this ends because we've got reports of children now identifying as animals or even in one case, the moon. And loads of left-wing Labour politicians seemingly did nothing to stop it. And now they're being found out. Look at this absolute gem from Scottish Labour leader Anas Sarwar, all right? So he said he's always been for the protection of single spaces. And then it turns out, in one of the most glorious community notes you will ever see on X, that he actually told his MSPs to vote in favour of Nicola Sturgeon's bill, which would have opened up women's changing rooms to men. So, yeah, that wasn't really true, was it, Anas? I'm afraid. But here we go. Anyway, now the big battle is this. It's the NHS, OK? They call women chest feeders. Well, I'm sorry, but my wife will not be a chest feeder when she gives birth to our child. She is very much a woman, thank you very much, who will have gone through something that only a woman can experience. OK? We brought you the case of the Darlington nurses about a year ago on GB News. They were made to share their changing rooms with a biological male who had full tackle and even had a girlfriend, actually. And then they were told to use a side room in a corridor to get changed if they didn't like it. Well, I think after yesterday's Supreme Court ruling that perhaps they should get their own changing room back and maybe that man should be the one to change somewhere near the corridor.
Us blokes hate talking about a little thinning up top and many of us settle with that balding look, but that wasn't for me. And that's why I went to Elite Hair, the world's leading hair loss clinic, and now I've had over 4,000 new hairs added to this barnet, and very soon I'm going to be rocking some brand new flowing locks. And you can too. So how does it work? Step 1, I sent the team a set of photos of my head. Step 2, I then spoke to one of the Elite Hair staff who looked through my photo submissions and worked out a treatment plan for me. Step 3, Elite Hair then organised accommodation and the treatment. I was at their state-of-the-art treatment centre in Istanbul and their incredibly kind staff took me through the process, and before I knew it I was in surgery. Elite Hair and their leading medical experts have specialised in pain-free treatments using the sleep deep method, and they really mean that. I felt incredibly relaxed the whole time and I haven't felt any pain since. Check out Elite Hair using the link in the description. When you do, Elite Hair will provide you with a free personalised hair analysis. Then you'll join over 100,000 happy patients. Hit that link and start your hair growth journey like I did today.
Well, I'm very pleased to say that 2 of these nurses join me now. Thank you very much. Tremendous to see you. I'm joined by Lisa Lockie and Bethany Hutchinson. Thank you so much for joining us. OK, so where are we actually up to with changing room gates then? What's the state of play there?
We've not heard anything at all from the Trust. They haven't bothered or had the decency to confront us at all. So we await hearing from them and discussing it with them.
But this must have presumably given you a bit of hope now. And Lisa, what do you think about this? Surely this is the wake-up call for your NHS managers.
Oh, certainly hope so. You know, we've sort of been putting up with silence from the Trust for about the last year. They've now got much clearer guidance that they can create a new policy with. We just hope that that's what they're going to do. But we're again just waiting, still using our little changing room.
It's absolutely ridiculous. We played a couple of pictures of it before. I don't know if we might be able to bring them back up, but I mean, you know, Bethany, just explain what you've had to go through, really, because as I understand it, again, it is one bloke who is identified as a woman, has a girlfriend, and the other relevant bits that make you a man, I suppose. And because of that, you've been forced into a side room.
Yes, we were forced into a side room. And it's been extremely uncomfortable. It's been awful for us, really stressful. I think a lot of us have felt like we've been gaslighted by the trust. We feel like we can't actually trust senior members of the team, that they don't actually have our back, that they'd rather put the rights of one male over the rights of women and the concerns of women, genuine concerns of women who some have been abused by men in the past and have trauma, and they'd rather allow for a male to be in the female changing room, causing this disruption and this uncomfortable situation, and remove the biological women who have concerns and put us in a tiny cupboard with hardly any lockers, and which opens onto a very, very busy corridor where people can look in and see you get changed.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely shocking to think that as well. I mean, the added icing on top of that particularly awful tasting cake is, you know, after a long day of saving lives, you're then thrust into a side room. But presumably the NHS Trust and, you know, other public services have been guilty of this as well. Dare I say it, there's probably a lot of private companies out there as well who have felt absolutely terrified that they didn't want to misgender someone or be seen in any way, shape or form to be transphobic. But that should all have changed yesterday now. There's been clear guidance. There was a really clear verdict, a unanimous verdict that hopefully restores a bit of common sense to proceedings. So, you know, this is something that needs to be, have serious action taken on it and taken quite quickly, really, because I don't see what possible justification they could have for not doing it now.
Well, you would think it would be illegal for them not to. You know, the guidelines are clear now. You know, surely if they don't make a change, then they're going against the law. So we're just hopeful that that something's going to happen. But in our experience with the trust so far, it's been very slow moving. I mean, we've had our court date now put back to October. Whether that's even going to need to happen now, we don't actually really know what's going to happen. Because hopefully this new ruling might actually prevent us needing to even go to court.
You'd have thought so. You would have thought so, and it should have. And by the way, the absolute lunacy of all of this is that it should not take a panel of Supreme Court judges to be able to say what a woman is. But you know, here we are now. At least if the right thing is done in the end. Look, full square on your side here. I hope that sanity does prevail. I'm tremendously sorry that you've ever had to be in this position and that you've had to have the discomfort and the inconvenience and all of that stuff and the gaslighting. You know, I really do hope as well that they don't try and gaslight you further and say, oh, well, we were always on your side recently. You know, if there's any way of really going after them and getting any kind of compensation that you deserve, then please do go full throttle for it, because I think the vast majority of the country are very much on your side. So thank you very much for making the time for us this evening. I'm sorry it can't be longer, but we've got to plough ahead, I'm afraid. But it's Lisa Lockie there, Bethany Hutchinson, the wonderful Darlington nurses. So there we go. Good for them. Good for them. Right. A spokesperson for County Durham and Darlington NHS Foundation Trust said County Durham and Darlington NHS Foundation Trust is fully committed to supporting all members of our staff and ensuring a safe, respectful and inclusive working environment. We recognise that legal proceedings are currently underway and we are engaging with the process in full accordance with employment law and tribunal's instructions. As this case is ongoing, it would not be appropriate to comment in details. There we go. Anyway, right, let's go for my panel now. Political commentator Suzanne Evans. We've also got Tory peer Lord Bailey and ex-Labour Party advisor Matthew Larser. Well, Suzanne, Yesterday, good verdict, but we've got to double down on this now. Yep. You've got to get right in there to those public services. We're zoning in today on the NHS. Mm-hmm. It's time that the NHS put women first, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so much damage has been done by so many officials in so many public bodies. It's hard to comprehend that, really. I mean, those poor women being forced into a changing room with a bloke, and then the hospital has the cheek. I'm sorry, I probably shouldn't comment on the statement. But they have the cheek to say that, we're geared towards inclusivity. Well, you're clearly not, because you're not protecting women and you're not looking after women. And I hope they do too, frankly. I feel a little bit ambiguous about that, because obviously it's our money that goes on.
Quite,
so on and so forth. So it's a tricky one. But I think, we've got to double down on this, like you said, because so much harm is being done. So many people have been so stupid. They've been in such thrall to the trans lobby that they have stated lunacy and behaved in a manner that is utterly lunatic to most normal people. A 5-year-old child could tell you that there's boys and there's girls. And yet here we have grown, supposedly responsible adults in sometimes very, very strong positions of power, basically trying to eliminate women. And I tell you what, Patrick, the next person that tries to call me a cis woman from now on will get a mouthful. Because that's the other thing. I really resented that, being told that you're a cis woman. No, I'm a woman. There's one thing called a woman, and that's me. And I'm sorry, anything else is completely wrong. And so I'm absolutely delighted by this case. And thank you so much to all those women who fought so hard for this. Thank you. Here
to that. I think there'll be a lot of people cheering at home now or listening on the radio or whatever. But Sean, again, just continuing this thing, the NHS now, these public bodies, it looks like British Transport Police have made some changes quite swiftly. It looks as though the chair of the Equalities and Human Rights Commission wants to try and make some changes quite quickly. It's a shame that it came to this. You shouldn't need a judge to be able to tell you what is biologically true. But the NHS is a big one. They've got to do some serious work, haven't they?
Look, the first thing that has to be talked about is the staggering levels of cowardice shown by political leadership. We have a Prime Minister, a married man with children who couldn't identify a woman. That's where it comes from. That's the first piece. No amount of explaining can wash that away, because that's what gave these people power. The second thing is, who is in charge? Wes Streeting very rightly said he wanted to look at DI, etc., etc. He was given short shrift. And he's the health secretary. Who is in charge? Somebody has to go in and take it out of the system. And what it is, we have people whose job, so therefore their professional identity, is to deliver these policies. Unless the identity is changed, nothing will happen. And with those nurses in particular, where was their union? Where was their union? This has been horrifically stressful for staff.
Might have not been the right issue for them,
Well, the union will have to have a deep look at itself. It'll have to have a deep look at itself. But the point is this has been terrifically stressful for staff. And their unions are meant to step in. And their unions claim the moral high ground all the time. But when their staff really needed them, where were they? And the last thing to say about sport. What we should do is have women's categories and an open category. So if you're trans, you can go in the open category. Let's just be clear. This verdict isn't about punishing trans people. No. It isn't about preventing people from being trans, but it is about protecting women.
Yeah. Well, absolutely. Here's that again. So, Matthew, a couple of things to put to you there. So, firstly, do you think that the Prime Minister and David Lammy and several people in the Labour Party had an opportunity to stand up for women when it would have been difficult to do so because of the, as I call them, trans mafia. And they decided not to do that. They decided to take the easy route, which was not to get shouted at by someone with blue hair and a frock on, right? And now you've got a Supreme Court judge who's come out and gone, actually, it does matter, biology. And they're going, we need to protect it. Weak, cowardly, should not be forgiven.
Well, I mean, look. Let's look at what this case was about. This was a case about whether people who had a gender recognition certificate. I've always been against self-identification. The Labour Party in England and Wales, I think Anas may have a little bit of gall and gumption there because it was more ambiguous, the position in Scotland. But in England and Wales, the position was always against self-identification. This was about whether it's 8,000 people who have a gender recognition certificate. Not 8,000 a year, 8,000 in 25 years have a gender recognition certificate. and that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
And I think that because people who just turned up and said, I'm a woman, should never have been put in a women's ward. The legal question was about what people who had a gender recognition certificate, what public authorities had to do about them. So I think all politicians have got themselves in a mess on this issue. The Tories had 14 years. 14 years, Sean. You did absolutely nothing, Sean. How did you change it in 14 years?
And I tell you what.
Answer the question, Sean.
Firstly, he's wrong. This isn't about people with gender recognition.
Yes, it was. That's what the case was about, Sean. Read the judgment.
Much further than that. It's about the ripple effect of what this has had. That's why
I said the case was, Sean, which it was.
Reference to the PM because it affected.
Is there not a point though that seriously we have ended up in a mess and the Tories were in power?
Yeah, but here's
Kemi Badenoch was the Equalities Minister.
Here's the real thing, Colin. Nobody could sit on this sofa and tell you that Kemi Badenoch was confused about this.
Yeah.
So what did she do, Sean?
She regularly.
No, what did she do? Not talk. What did she do?
She regularly got in trouble for her very decisive views that women are women.
She didn't do anything, Sean. That's the answer to the question. She did nothing.
This is the point, Matthew. The point is this. Because
the point is, Kemi Badenoch was the Equalities Minister and she did nothing, Sean.
Right, you've made it. Let's
because people on the left made such a song and dance of this, right? Because the Labour Party, Keir Starmer, wouldn't stand up. The whole political firmament couldn't go anywhere, and it's ended up in the lap of the law. It should
and Kemi Badenoch did nothing. Your leader did nothing, Sean. She had the chance and she did nothing.
And your leader promoted
Talk.
Well, maybe the blokes are doing a little bit too much talking when we do have a woman on the panel. So, Susan, you mentioned earlier, I think there's going to be I hope, anyway, there's kind of a reckoning and a bonfire of, these ridiculous HR claims. Because the thing that gets me about this is there's loads of people who lost their jobs.
Yeah,
it split marriages up.
Absolutely.
It cost them all sorts of stuff. Costing their reputation. They were hounded online. All of the people that were doing the cancelling and doing all of the hatred, they're all fine. They just get to take this verdict and go, oh, all right then.
Well, I'm sorry, they shouldn't be allowed to because, as I said right at the beginning, it's about harm that's been done here. And you mentioned education as well. And that, for me, is one of the biggest harms, that children were force-fed this appalling idea that they could be born in the wrong body, that they could change their sex, they identify as the opposite sex or an animal or something like that. I mean, God, the damage that could potentially do is awful. And nobody should be, nobody should be allowed to get away with that. I'm sorry, there has to be the floodgates opened here for legal cases. This reminds me very much of the kind of grooming gangs issue. It's the same kind of ideology behind it, that, we don't say anything because we don't want to be seen to be racist. And it's exactly the same for, teachers that push this, people in public sector that push this. It's like, we don't say anything, we'll be called transphobic. Cowards. That's what they are, cowards, and I'm afraid they need to pay the price.
Well, there we go. Well, actually, a very lively start. I enjoyed that. Thank you very much, everyone.